Before trying this next lesson, try the warm-up question. Change this fraction to lowest terms without using a calculator. I'll show you how I did it. If they're both end in 0, that means you can divide them both by 10, which gives you 6 out of 10. They're both even numbers. You can divide them both by 2, which gives you 3 over 5. And that's lowest terms. So hopefully you were able to do that. This lesson is from Spiral 1, Topic 1, Lesson 5, the 5th lesson in the first topic of our spiral. You should write today's date in your notes to help stay organized, and the title of this lesson is percent. So we're going to look at what percent is and what you can do with it. My hope is that you've seen all of this before and it's just review, but if you've forgotten some of the details, that's okay. That's why we're going over it now. So let's start with the basics. Let's start with the terminology. What does percent mean? Well, if you look at how the word is broken up, the prefix is per, and the root of the word is cent. If you know how to count in French, you'll recognize this. Cent or cent means 100. So it comes from Latin for 100. And per, well, we've seen that before, like kilometers per hour or dollars per hour, which really means it's out of that thing. So per 100 means out of 100. So percent means out of 100. And typically we see percents written like this with the percent symbol, but you can also write them as a ratio or as a fraction. So as a ratio, 6%, 6 compared with 100, so 6 to 100. That's how you can write it as a ratio. And you can also write that as a fraction, 6 out of 100. But not only that, you can reduce the fraction to lowest terms, which would be 3 out of 50, or 3/50ths. So you can write a percent as a ratio, you can write a percent as a fraction. You can even write percents as decimals and decimals as fractions, and you can write fractions as decimals and fractions as percents. You can change between percents, decimals, and fractions any which way you want. So that's what we're going to do right now. Here's some examples. 80%, we're going to write that as a decimal, and we're also going to write it as a fraction. Well, let's start with the fraction because we already kind of did that up here. 80% means 80 out of 100, so that is a fraction, but let's keep it in lowest terms. 80 out of 100 is 8 out of 10, which is 4 out of 5. So 4/5 is the fraction in lowest terms. Now, if we want to change the percent into a decimal, just remember 80% means 80 out of 100, or 80 divided by 100. So if you do 80 divided by 100, you end up with 0.8 as your decimal. Okay, I'm going to skip down to this one now. We're starting with the decimal. Okay, let's take this decimal and turn it into a percent. Well, up here we did a percent, turn it into a decimal. We did 80 divided by 100 to get the decimal. If we're working backwards, we're going to do the opposite operation. So instead of divide by 100, we will go times 100. So if you do 0.175 times 100, you get 17.5. So this is 17.5%. Now, a lot of people get stuck changing a decimal into a fraction, but you don't really need to as long as you remember place value. So if you'll recall, place value means what column you're in after the decimal. So we're all familiar with, to the left of the decimal, it's ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, etc. But when you go to the right of the decimal, it's tenths, hundredths, thousandths, etc. So if this ends, the last digit ends in the thousandths column, we would read this as 175 thousandths. In fact, that's the fraction we can start with. But it's not in lowest terms, so we've got a number ending in a 5, a number ending in a 0. That means they're both divisible by 5. So when we do that, we end up with 5/200ths, or 5 out of 200. Again, ends with 5, ends with 0. They're both divisible by 5, so we'll do that again. It ends up being 1/40th. So 1/40th is 0.175, and it is 17.5%. They all mean the same thing. Last one, we're going from a fraction to a decimal. How do you do that? Well, it's simple. 5/8 is 5 divided by 8. So just do 5 divided by 8 in your calculator, and it's 0.625. So that's the decimal. And now turn the decimal into a percent. We times 100, so it's 62.5%. Now what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and try to fill in the rest of the table. So all these blanks, I want you to figure out. Pause the video, try it, and then check back in to see how you did. There you go. If you didn't get any of those, let me know so I can help. Otherwise, move on. We can work through some examples. In this example, we're going to calculate percent of a number. This is a very valuable skill to have, and a lot of people mess it up. First issue, let's say you're trying to find 62% of 968. Well, a lot of people will just do 62 times 968, and they'll get a ridiculously big number. But you got to think about it. If it's 62% of this, well, it's not 100%. It's less than that. So it should be a smaller number. So you can catch yourself that way if you're making a mistake. We know it should be smaller than 968. Another common mistake is people will do 968 divided by 62. And they'll get 15.6 or something like that. Yeah, that's smaller, but use your head here. 62%, that's more than half. So we should get an answer that's more than half of this. Well, this is almost 1,000, so we're looking at something that's going to be over 500 thereabouts. So just make sure you're actually looking at your answer and seeing if it makes sense. Yeah, you can avoid a lot of silly mistakes if you actually think about how your answer relates to the original number. Okay, so to solve this question, 62% of 968, I'm going to show you a way of understanding this. I don't typically solve a problem like this way. It's kind of cumbersome, but I think it helps in explaining the shorter process that I will show you later. Okay, so 62% means 62 out of 100. However, we want to know what it is out of 968. So we can actually set up a proportion. 62 out of 100 equals x out of 968. And you can cross multiply and divide. Well, notice right here, to solve for x, you can do 62 times 968 divided by 100. What you're really doing is, look at this, 62 out of 100. That's 62% right there. 62 divided by 100 is 0.62. So what you're doing is you're taking 0.62, multiplying it by 968. So you really don't need to do all this work here. All you have to remember is when you're taking a percent of a number, it's just the decimal version of the percent multiplied by the number. So 62% is 0.62, of means multiply, 968. So when you do that, you get 600.16. Okay, the next one, let's do this. 15% of $52. Well, it's going to be smaller than $52, less than half. So why don't you try this one? Remember, it's the decimal multiplied by 52. So 15% is 0.15 times 52 is 7.8 in your calculator. But remember, we're talking about money, so we got to write it properly with the second digit after the decimal. So $7.80. We don't write $7.8. We write $7.80. Okay, so here we got 3.26% of $112.67. So how much money is that? Try it. Then try this one. See what you get. Okay, 3.26% is 0.0326. A lot of people will write 0.326, but that would be 32.6%. So make sure you include that leading zero. Okay, then multiply, you get approximately $3.67. Did you remember the dot above the equal sign? Did you round it properly? It's not $3.66. Over here, 108% of 28,000. A lot of people get thrown off when you have a percent more than 100. That just means it's going to be more than this amount. So we do, in fact, get a bigger number. That's good. 108% is 1.08. Multiply 30,240. So takeaway message here, if you want percent of a number, you take the decimal version of the percent and multiply. But we don't just calculate percent of a number. Usually we do something with that. Usually it's either going to be a percent decrease or a percent increase. So here's an example. A t-shirt has a regular price of $25. It is on sale for 15% off. What is the sale price? So you see this a lot in stores. You've got something on sale. It's 15% off. Okay, what's the new price? Is it going to be lower or higher than $25? Well, hopefully, since it's on sale, it's going to be a lower price. So we know that we're going to take 15% of the regular price, and that's how much the regular price decreases by. So I'm going to show you two methods to solve this problem, and they're both equally valid. You pick whichever method makes the most sense to you. So in the first method, I'm first going to find the discount. Well, the discount, it's 15% of the regular price, 15% of $25. So I calculate that by taking 0.15 times 25. It ends up being $3.75. But the question is not what is the discount, it's what is the sale price. So the sale price is going to be that 15% off of the regular price. So $3.75 taken away from 25. So we're subtracting it from the regular price. We end up with $21.25. So this is the most common method that students in grade 9 like to use because it seems to be kind of straightforward and it makes sense with what you've done in grades 7 and 8. I'm going to show you a second method here that will get the same answer. It might be a little bit less time consuming. So you'll get to look at it and see if you like it. So in this one, we just calculate the sale price directly. If you're getting 15% taken off the price, what percent of the price are you paying? Well, they have to add up to 100%, so if you're taking off 15%, that means you're left with 85% of the price. So that's what the sale price is. It's 85% of that $25, which ends up being $21.25, the same thing as we did before, except you can do this all in one step. You don't have to find the discount and then subtract it from the regular price. So a lot of students, once they learn this method, they actually prefer it. But if you still prefer this method, that's fine. You can stick with that. In the last example, we looked at a percent decrease. Now we're going to go the opposite way. Bob's record collection increases in value by 12% per year. It is currently worth $220. What will it be worth 1 year from now? So again, you can base your solution off of what we did in the previous example. You can find what the increase is and then add it to its original value. or you can figure out what its new value is going to be all in one step. So I'm going to pause it, let you figure this out, but just remember, last time we were decreasing the value by a percent. This time we're increasing the value by a certain percent. So adjust your method accordingly. Pause the video, see how you do. So here you go, the two different methods. We can find the increase, which is 12% of the $220, and then add the increase. We get $246.40. Or we can just find the new value directly. If we're increasing 12%, that means we are going to have 112% of the $220. So 1.12 times 220 is $246.40. Get the same answer regardless of the method. You pick your favorite. Either one works. So hopefully at the end of this lesson, you know how to change between percents, decimals, and fractions, and you can use the decimal version of a percent to calculate percent of a number, and you can use that to find a percent increase or a percent decrease. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll do my best to help. Otherwise, move on to the practice questions.